Are you struggling to maintain your daily Vipassana practice? You're not alone. In this video, I'm going to dive deep into some of the challenges that meditators face in sustaining a consistent Vipassana practice. You know, whether it's emotional turmoil, whether it's a hectic schedule, whether it's unexpected life distractions, right? We'll talk about the solutions that I have found that have worked for me in my life to help me maintain a consistent practice. I don't think I've missed a sitting for the last close to 4 years now. And so I'll talk about, some of the things that helped me and some of the challenges and how I dealt with those things, right? So if you're ready to uncover the secrets to overcoming these hurdles, if you're ready to get all the benefits out of Vipassana, which does need consistent daily practice, if you're ready to get all the benefits, if you're ready to feel more like you felt on the 10-day courses in your regular life, keep watching. All right. So the number one main issue with meditating 2 hours a day is literally the time management. Literally finding the time for it. So I often found myself, especially during the first few months to the first year, finding meditation being a hard choice to make, right? I had social responsibilities. I wanted to just keep watching my show. There were so many things that got in the way of me actually making the time for it, right? And so one of the things that really helped out was being really clear about my intentionality, telling all my friends, telling my family, telling my, more and more of my acquaintances and my coworkers. And really, it's like treating it as an important thing, as a thing that you can't miss, right? It's like your meals, I have to eat. Sure, maybe I might, eat an hour later than I usually do or earlier or whatever, but I make time for it because I'm like, I need to eat, right? Or I need to shower, or I need to go grocery shopping, right? These things I have to do. So number one is to make meditation a priority. You got to prioritize it. And sometimes too, finding the time can be difficult when your schedule changes, right? When I often find when I'm, going on a trip somewhere and I'm catching an early morning flight, then where do I fit in the meditation? How do I make time for it? I'm waking up at 4 a.m. to get to the airport at 5:30 because my flight's at 6:30. In those situations, I just meditate on the plane, right? I meditate. I make an intention. Hey, I'm going to meditate while I'm on the airplane. Now, the funny part about that is, the flights are usually, 2-ish hours, that I usually go on, or longer. And it's always like a game of when's the cart going to come? Should I start meditating before the coffee and the snacks come? Should I meditate afterwards? And usually it happens right damn in the middle and you're going to get distracted. But anyway, it's just like making that intentionality and making it clear to everyone around you that you find this very, very valuable and you're going to do it. Now, the other thing with this is, actually making more time for it. And what I had noticed before I got super serious about meditating every day was I looked at what I did in the evenings. And I would say 80 to 90% of the time, it was just me scrolling social media, watching YouTube videos. I wasn't really doing anything super important, between 8 p.m. and 11 p.m. I just wasn't, and this is not to speak to maybe people who've got kids and, maybe their story is different, but my story was, after 8 or 9 p.m., anything that I'm doing is just lazy dead time. And so it was just sort of recognizing one day, I was like, am I really prioritizing something that's going to drain me, right? Scrolling social media, watching YouTube videos, not YouTube videos like this that are super awesome, but just funny, hilarious things that end up making me feel so depleted. I was like, am I really choosing something that's depleting me over something that I know will nourish me? Right. And so I was just kind of making that mental shift to be like, all right, it's more important for me to nourish myself than to do this. But at the same time, it's like I was doing this for 2 hours. So it's not a question of not to do this. It's more like, okay, I can do this for an hour, 2 hours. I can find an hour for this. So instead of doing this for 3 hours, I'll do this for 2 hours, and then I'll do this for 1 hour. That is so good. So, it was just kind of like that. And this kind of leads to the next, to the next thing is creating a distraction-free environment is super crucial to meditation. And here's what I've learned. So when it does come to my phone, I want to keep it on silent. I make it silent, and I've learned to put it out of reach, because even me that I've been practicing consistently and I'm super dedicated, I know all the benefits, it's worth it to me, it's a priority. Sometimes when my phone's not on silent and it's within arm's reach, I'll hear a thing go off, I'll grab it just to check the notification, even though I told myself I wouldn't. And then bam, 20 minutes have gone by. Now I got to push back my meditation for a little longer, got to let my kitty out. And then that ends up, just like not ruining, I don't want to sound dramatic, but it just impedes the meditation practice. So creating a distraction-free environment is super important. So when it comes to my phone, I put it on silent. I put it out of arm's reach. I'll either put on the timer, the Goenka, or just the bell one through the app, or sometimes I'll just see what time it is and, just keep meditating till an hour's gone by. And then another thing is to take care of any responsibilities you have before meditating. At least that's, what's worked for me. I find it hard to meditate from at 6 to 7 or 7 to 8. I usually meditate from 9 to 10 and then, go to bed at 10:30 or whatever. And what that allows me to do is, there are some things that I need to do during the evening, right? I got to feed my kitties. I have to respond to, people are more awake at that time and more texting and more stuff is basically happening. So I just make sure to have all of that done by the time that 9 o'clock rolls around. And then I can just sit and meditate and have no worries. I've taken care of the dishes. I've taken care of, laundry, whatever chores might spin up in my mind. If I'm meditating and I haven't done the dishes, it'll start popping in my head. Well, you got to wash the dishes. And, so taking care of those is really important. And these small factors are super important to just maintain a consistent practice. Now, here's a big one, right? Number 3 is a big one. And this is starting to lead more into the internal stuff, right? Emotional turmoil. When there is a big, when life throws you a big, significant challenge, like a breakup, a job loss, family loss, so many things, it can really throw off the whole practice, right? Because oftentimes, right, I remember I was going through a tough breakup, and every time I would sit down to meditate, obviously the breakup would come into my mind and all the feelings that came with it. And so for that period of time where I was going through the emotional healing or the emotions of a breakup for months, every time I sat to meditate, my thoughts, it would just keep rolling in the breakup and the anger and the frustration and the disappointment in the things that happen and all of this kind of stuff. And, I thought to myself, why am I choosing to inflict pain on myself, right? Because it's in my regular life, I can just ignore. I can ignore my feelings. I can watch a YouTube video. I can drown it out. I can try to distract myself, right? I can do all of this stuff. So why am I sitting here to meditate? I'm not even meditating, right? I'm not even being focused and observing the sensations, because here's this huge storm that every time I sit just keeps popping up, right? And but at the end of the day, you can't run away from your emotions, and that's why I kind of kept my practice going, even though the practice itself of being focused on sensations, remaining equanimous, anicca, and all this kind of stuff was completely gone. And what this helped me realize, right, is it's okay to feel those things. I don't have to run away. It is quite unhealthy to run away. And actually Vipassana, right? I've made it sound 100% of the time was rolling in the thought and the emotions and all that. But honestly, there would be moments, so if it was like a 1 hour sit, sure, 80 to 90% is me rolling in the anger and the like all the emotions and stuff. But then 10 to 20% was me actually, meditating for a little bit. And by normal standards, I would say this is a bad meditation session. And I'll get into that later too. Because, I'm usually more in the like 50 to 70% focus, 20 to 30% not focused. And so like to be like 90% not focused and just off in the thing, and to be in so much pain, it's just, it taught me that just even having that 10 to 20% gave me the strength to like not be afraid of my feelings, to handle the emotional turmoil, like with a lot more ability, just with a better ability. I was able to maintain more of the coolness of my mind, the stability of my mind, to be able to not get overwhelmed, right? And the other thing that it really taught me is like, I do need to process these emotions. And if my regular day to day of like being busy with work, talking with friends and family, like if all of this is just distracting me, granted, I did talk with some of my friends about the breakup and stuff. But like this became my meditation, became a time to actually internally process all of these emotions, and used meditation as a tool to give me the strength to process and enhance my calmness, gave me clarity, right? Just having a deeper perspective. And in some moments, I was able to practice sampajana, which even gave me deeper insights into the nature of how all these intense emotions are rolling and are controlling me and are overpowering me and leading to itself, right? Leading to generate itself again. And by that, I just mean, if I'm angry, that anger in the next moment is more likely to make me angry, right? And then it like kind of builds on itself and turns into bigger and bigger fires. So just noticing that and having this deeper understanding is really powerful. So if you are going through a emotionally charged time in your life where a big thing is happening, like it's okay. It's okay if your meditation sessions are just 10 to 20% focused. It's actually like so healthy to process the emotions, to be with the emotions, because if you leave them unchecked, they're going to, like, you're just going to shove it down, you're going to suppress it, and it's just going to follow you forever, right? It's going to affect your future relationships. It's going to affect your future well-being. Like, it's not going to go away. And so you have to deal with it in the moment. And if that means that your meditation sessions will be less focused, it's okay. You can't control storms coming. You can't control, things happening in your life. I can't say, well, I will never get fired, or I will never be laid off, or I will never leave work. No, it's like it can happen at any time. And unexpected things will happen. And so if that interrupts the meditation, that is like totally a good part of the process, because it's more important to face the storm than to use meditation as another like escape tool, right? Another like distraction, or just another way to like run away from it. So it's a good thing to be super emotional when you're in an emotional time. And later on, like a couple points from now, I'm going to talk about the difference, or how to balance effort and lack of effort, or working too hard and right effort. So now getting into number 4 is still emotional. It is handling stagnation and low motivation, right? Those days when just meditation feels like such a chore, maybe you're just super tired from work and it just takes too much energy, and you would rather just numb out by watching the next episode of a show, and you just don't want to think, and you don't want to feel, and you are just like, you just don't want to meditate. Actually, meditating might even like repulse you, right? Now, it's always good to remember that you're going to have off days, right? With whatever it might be, right? Let's say with cooking, there are months or days where I feel, oh my God, I am so excited to make food. And then there's times where I'm just like, I don't want to do this, right? Or like going to the gym. There are times when it's like, I just don't want to do this. I feel like an internal resistance towards it. And so it's like recognizing this is just a part of being human. And it doesn't mean that we have to always succumb to it. And it doesn't mean that the thing that we're averse to is bad or isn't working or is not good enough, right? Like cooking works. If I don't feel like cooking, it doesn't mean that cooking itself is bad, right? So we have to watch this transference and not build resentment towards meditation itself and thinking, oh, well, I don't feel like doing it. That means meditation doesn't work for me or it's not clicking with me. It's not. No, it's just the normal part of life that we want. Sometimes we want things. Sometimes we don't want the things we want, right? If you gave me one chocolate bar, I'd be happy. I'd eat it. You give me 4, I'm like, I don't want it. You give me 4 hours of meditation, I'll be blissed, right? So, but anyway, the other thing is to just look at your expectations, right? Do you expect that you're going to just be in love with meditation every single time that you have to meditate? Then that's not like a long-term success factor, right? And so it's just kind of like remembering, hey, I'm going to have these off days. I'm going to have days where my meditations, I'm like 10% focused. I'm going to have times when I'm like 90 to 100% focused and it's just like flowing easily. But we can't expect every session or every time we think about meditating to feel 100% amazing all the time, right? And to stay motivated, right? Just remember, like think back to your 10-day course. And just remember how open your mind felt, how blissed and how just flowy and how everything was just smooth, right? Meditation works, Vipassana works. So just remember when it has helped you, or just even reflect on in the past when you haven't meditated, and you were a little more anxious, a little more stressed, a little more on edge, you were a bit more reactive. Just remember those times when you're feeling unmotivated. And just remind yourself, it's worth it. It's worth it. Sweet. Now we've got number 5. So number 5 is balancing sincere effort and relaxation, right? And it's essential to find the right balance during meditation. And why that is because this whole meditation practice, right, is to remain equanimous and to remain aware of anicca. And there's a whole purpose to this practice to bring you out of those habitual patterns of behavior, of thinking, of feeling that have conditioned a certain being that you are, it's given you a certain personality, and you're trying to come out of that. And this is a long, hard road, right? Because what we're up against is this system, this subconscious system, that is flight or flight, that just reacts to danger and to reward with, dopamine, just all these chemicals and all these things that has been, created over billions of years of evolution. This is what has instilled these patterns and reactivities, right? You think of something that you don't like, that system is like, that's dangerous. You're thinking about, if you have social anxiety, just the fact of talking to somebody, not dangerous. It's not going to hurt you. You're not going to die. But because you see it as a negative thing and you got this anxiety, your system is going to react like you are going to die. And it's going to pump all these chemicals into you that makes you feel like this is the worst thing in the whole world when it's literally not, right? And so just like trying to relate to this system, and we're trying to change this, right? We're trying to change the way that we react, the way that we view things, the way that we understand things, so that we can live well. And in order to do this, we have to practice, right? We have to do Vipassana. We have to observe our sensations. We have to get to subtler and subtler sensations and reach all the stages, that's like in Vipassana in order to do that. And so it does require effort. It does require effort, right? Even to like focus, bring your awareness down to your breath. It requires effort, and to keep it there because your mind wants to go everywhere. But if you're doing that too hard, you're kind of you're not doing good, basically. You're being counterproductive, basically, if you are working too hard. And now, what is working too hard? right, is working too hard, doing, 12 hours of meditation a day. No, it's not about the time, right? It's about the moment to moment effort. And a good way that I like to gauge if I'm working too hard or not, if I'm pushing too hard or not, is I'll use my breath, right? I'll use my breath as an anchor point. One of the things that Goenka says is you can, as you're scanning your body, let's say I'm scanning right here, as you're scanning your body, you can also maintain awareness on your breath, right? So what I'll do is, as I'm scanning my body, if I feel, some tension, if I'm like staring down too much with, like super hard and my eyes are feeling tension, I'll use these as measurements for if I'm trying too hard and if I'm not like relaxed in my observation. And then the breath comes in where if I'm straining my awareness too much, my breath will be tighter, right? There will be these physical reactions that show if I am overstraining. And overstraining can lead to like more damage than good, right? Like imagine you're working out, like you want to work hard, but if you overstrain and do more than you can, you're going to end up hurting yourself. And so it's always good to know, okay, this is how much I can do, and this is what's challenging, and that's what I'm going to stay, and I'm not going to go over. So for you, right, if you're able to focus on Anapana as you're doing, here's my kitties, by the way, as you're doing your Vipassana practice, it's like gauge your breath to see, are you working too hard? Are you not working hard enough? And how do you know if you're not working hard enough? Well, that one you'll know. You'll know if you're not putting in sincere effort and you're just, kind of being a little bit lazy. And usually how I know that is, let's say I'm focused on, my sensation here, and then a thought comes, distracts me, pulls me away. And then in the moment that I catch myself and, I'm lost in thought, instead of returning to, where I'm scanning or to my breath, if I'm like, I want to roll in this thought some more. This is a fun thought, or this is a fun scenario to think about, or, I like these emotions. I want to roll in it more. To me, that's my measure of not working hard enough, is to like literally be like, I can go back, but no, I'm going to choose to like keep being distracted. So for me, that's how I measure between those two things, and not necessarily how distracted I am. Right? Because sometimes, like I was talking about earlier with the emotional turmoil, with huge things like that, right? The storms are just so heavy that 90% of my sit, or even 100% sometimes, will just be rolling in this big storm, right? And in those times, it's whenever I do catch myself, is to just try to come back. And that is how I measure it. So it's not necessarily how distracted are you or how focused are you that measures your balance between sincere effort and relaxation. But really, it's how do you come back? Are you super intentional with directing your attention back when you are distracted? And when you are focused, are you not overexerting yourself by using your breath as the measure? So, these are all the things that I struggled with that got in the way of me maintaining a consistent practice. So to wrap it up, let's just cover a couple of the key points, right? Overcoming the challenges does take persistence and patience, right? And it takes a lot of hard work. And the challenges are there, not to test your ability, but to give you an opportunity to strengthen your character. And I do encourage you to stay committed to your practice because, like I said before, Vipassana or anything really in life only works the more time that you are consistent with it, right? The more time that you put in, the more that you get out of it. If I go to yoga for a whole year and I gain all this flexibility and strength and all this good stuff, and then if I don't go for a whole year, right, where I will be at that second year mark or the beginning of the third year is I'm not going to be flexible and strong because I practiced 1 year ago, right? It's more like, hey, what have you been doing in the short term recently? That's what matters. So in the same way, Vipassana is the same, is you have to, it like takes the last few days to a week to determine where you are right now. So if you've been consistent in the last, If you were consistent for 10 years in Vipassana, but then stopped for a year, you're going to go back to exactly where you were before you did all that. So please stay consistent. It's important to reach the destination. It's important to progress, right? So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.